What's up everyone, Mekkah here, back with another guide review video. So before we get started on this Path of Radiance guide that I want to get into, because it's a really fun one, I want to say thank you guys for all the support and reactions on the previous video. It had been a while since I did a reaction video to a guide, but I'm really glad that people really took a liking to it. It reminded me just how fun these are to make and how fun it is to get a good reception on them too. So to celebrate that, we're going to do another fairly quickly after. I made a playlist where I did all the similar kind of videos in one playlist, so you can watch them at your convenience in case you missed one, or in case you're new and you want to watch some old ones. They vary in quality, but in the end it's all just about the fun reactions, right? So this Path of Radiance guide was posted and photographed by a Reddit user named RabbitMoo, so thank you for that. Someone tagged me in a Reddit thread. I was like, you know what, I can probably save this up for some time I feel like recording it, and now I feel like recording it. So looking at this is like, I think it's a segment of a Nintendo Power Guide. It's like a 9-page long feature of Path of Radiance, and I gotta be honest, it's not actually bad. It's pretty funny. It has some really bad parts that I want to read out, but it's also actually kind of charmingly written and kind of funny. So this is less let's bash this guide to pieces because it's so bad overall, and more like, let's just have a fun look at this. So first of all, the cover is super awesome. I don't know if this is official game art or if this is something that someone at Nintendo Power put together, but it looks really cool. It has like Knigas, I think both his animal and his normal form on it, and then Tabar and Sanaki, Alincia and Ike. And of course it's called On the War Path, because it's Path of Radiance. The twists and turns of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance make it easy to lose focus. Our 9-page mini guide will keep you on a straight and narrow. So this guide is pretty elaborate, which makes me think they actually took their time putting it together. This is not just something that someone had to like cram together within like about a week within the release of the game or something. Looks like they took their time with this, which is really cool to see. I don't know how long it was released after Path of Radiance, but as you can see from the next page, it's actually pretty elaborate. So I'm just gonna read this out. Now, I know that Path of Radiance is, for most Fire Emblem veterans, it's a very easy game. Hold on, let me turn my speakers off. It's a very easy game. I would argue it's probably the easiest in the series, apart from like Phoenix mode in Fates or something. I would say it's actually easier than Fire Emblem 8, so you might be cynical and think like, why would you need a guide for Path of Radiance? But it has some like mini things and things that need explaining. And of course someone might be playing this game as their first Fire Emblem, so it makes sense that they explain stuff. But In With the New is actually aimed at people who are familiar with Fire Emblem, but not familiar with Path of Radiance. So they're talking about everything that's different in Path of Radiance compared to, for example, Sacred Stones. And that's, I think, a really cool angle to take. So, In With the New. Though Fire Emblem battle mechanics remain familiar from one game to the next, each title has its own quirks. Quirks. As the first Fire Emblem game on the GameCube and in 3D, Path of Radiance brings a variety of features that set it apart from its predecessors. We've highlighted 5 of them. So first they go over individual skills, weapon control, nature heals, shove your friends, experience for all, and apparently there's more than where that came from. So individual skills. In Path of Radiance, units can learn special skills that will give them advantages on the battlefield. Learnable skills range in effectiveness, from regenerating your unit's health to damaging an opponent when it attacks your unit. You can find many different skills throughout the game in the form of scrolls, though some scrolls are inherent to specific characters. Each unit can learn a limited number of skills, and many skills are compatible only with specific characters and classes. You can assign and remove skills at will, but do so carefully. When you remove a skill from a character, you're discarding it permanently. This is not the most in-depth explanation of it, but it sure is a pretty good one. It doesn't have any errors or anything. I wish they would kind of explain the capacity, because they actually have a picture underneath about Boyd and his limited capacity. So they could have explained it a little more, but overall I'm pretty happy with this explanation. Weapon control. Once you reach Path of Radiance's 8th chapter, you'll have a number of options between battles, one of which is to visit your party's blacksmith. For a price, the blacksmith will create a variety of custom weapons for your units. You can adjust many attributes of a weapon, but decide carefully which weapon to build and how powerful to make it. You can create only one new weapon per chapter. Again, not a complete explanation of how it works, but if you don't want to delve super deep into the numbers, I think this is pretty reasonable. And again, this is something that's only in Path of Radiance at the time, so I like that they took the time to explain this a little bit, how it works. Nature heals, this is a very strange one. Keep an eye for sparkling green bushes, known as heal hedges, on the battlefield. They have regenerative powers. If you park a wounded unit on a heal hedge, he'll gain a small amount of HP each turn. leaving your healers to tend to other injured allies. I've never found this particular feature to be a very complicated one or a very useful one. It's mostly annoying when enemies retreat to it rather than your own. But hey, it's technically correct and new, I guess. I just find it a little strange to see this highlighted among, like, compared to like skills and weapon control, this is a very strange thing to like talk about. Plus, it's not like healing terrain is new to Fire Emblem. There were forts. And I don't think Path of Radiance has forts, but it has gates that heal you, I think, and like thrones. So a heal hedge is not, like, if you had to pick 5 things to explain from Path of Radiance, would you pick nature heals as one of them? I personally wouldn't, but hey, it's fine. Shove your friends. Shoving is a new battlefield technique that allows certain units to push an ally one space over. The maneuver can come in handy, and interesting, in a number of situations, whether you need to push a unit out of harm's way or clear a path for another unit to attack. Only non-mounted units can perform a shove, and the weight of both the shover and the shovee will determine whether it can occur. If the smite skill is assigned to the shover, he will shove an ally 2 spaces rather than 1. Pretty complete explanation, actually. Again, they don't really get into the exact numbers, but they don't need to. It's just a general guide. Let me just get that out of the way. So I like this explanation again. Experience for all. With 46 playable characters, you'll have to choose carefully which ones to take into battle. To give you further control of the growth of your individual units, Path of Radiance rewards bonus experience points after each battle, and you can divvy them up among your units of your choosing. Use these points to level up units that are falling behind due to lack of battle exposure, or to strengthen your most used units even more. I really like that they give both of these options in that last sentence. That, like, it's not just for catching up like an S-like character or another level of character, it's also just to make your like often used characters even stronger so they can like really be good. That's very surprising for a guide that was made apparently in December 2005. Wow. They were better at Fire Emblem than I was back then, for sure. Alright, Firestarter is the next page. Battle in Path of Radiance is nuanced, and you must play your cards right to keep all your party members alive. In the following 2 pages, we'll walk you through Chapter 11, Blood Runs Red, to illustrate a successful battle plan. And they got this neat little map in here with not just the grid and where everything starts, but they have like a legend next to it with what is what, and they even indicate what's to be found in the villages. They indicate a certain enemy reinforcement, starting enemies, a recruitable character. It's pretty complete and pretty good, actually. And then they start giving like pointers on how to tackle the battle. So number 1, in the beginning, formulating a plan based on your environment and enemies is essential in any battle. Check the view map option in the pre-battle menu to size up the opposing force. Pressing the Y button over individual enemies will reveal their stats and inventories. Once you know what you're up against, bring in the appropriate party members and begin the battle. For Chapter 11, you may want to split your party up at the start of the battle, sending a small group including Leth or Mordecai to the northeast to recruit Zyhark, while the rest of your group heads west. Pretty good. You should probably look at the map before you pick your units. I will say most players probably pick the same units in almost every map. They just have like a core team that they use throughout the game with not much variety. But in the case of someone like Zyhark, where you need to recruit someone special, it is a good idea to change things up a little bit to make sure you can actually recruit everyone. So I'm not going to nitpick this to death or anything. I'm just saying, like, most people won't need to think very carefully about who to bring. Move it or lose it. If your group doesn't make haste at the start of some battles, a thief will sneak onto the scene and steal the loot of a nearby house and treasure chests. To keep them out from missing valuable items, send a unit with high movement stats to secure the treasure or block it from enemy hands. I like how, I think it's either Titania or Kieran on the picture. I think it's funny if it's Titania because she's like a pre-promote and everything. But yeah, you gotta hurry up or you miss out on treasure. Good lesson, nothing else to say about it. Next page. Sorry, I'm using image UR to watch these and I have to click around. They changed the website a little bit and it's kind of annoying now. Anyway, next page. Number 3, you shall not pass. Certain environmental bottlenecks can work in your favor. Narrow pathways provide a great opportunity to create roadblocks and draw your enemies towards you. Keep more resilient units such as paladins and fighters on the front line while positioning archers and magic wielders in the back. Make sure units stay close together and have a healer nearby. The classic giant ball of death strategy. It's great for beginners and advanced players like me alike, because I always resort to it when I don't want to think too much. This is a good strategy generally. You Shall Not Pass is an example of the many like pun-like titles I like to give their guides. It's pretty funny. 4. Betrayal for the greater good. Some enemies can be convinced to switch sides and join your party. In Port Toha, you can recruit Zyhark, a Laguz supporter disguised as a vigilante, but only by having Leth or Mordecai speak to him. Position one of the beasts next to Zyhark on the battlefield and select Talk. See page 60 for a more detailed description of recruitment. I don't have this page, I think. What page number is this? 57? Okay, I probably have it, so it'll come up later. Recruitment generally not too complicated, but they have examples of where it is complicated, so I remember what they're talking about now. Yeah, they actually have that. But yeah, Sulk to Mordecai with one of your Laguz to recruit him. Pretty simple, but it's good to have this. This is the kind of shit you need to learn from a guide sometime. I think Zyhark's case, it's kind of obvious sometimes, but this is a good tip for it in a guide. I like this. 5. Taking a breather. A boss and his lackeys will usually put up the toughest fight on any given map. When possible, reunite your separated units for some downtime before a boss battle, preferably in a location just outside of the boss's range. This will give you a chance to trade weapons and items, heal injured characters, and strategize for a final assault. Good tip. I like it. It's probably not a good idea to take on a boss with half health. That can end pretty poorly. And number 6, of course, the Big Kahuna. Most bosses are just like regular enemies, but stronger. Press the Y button over a boss to view his weapons and attack him with a strong unit capable of damaging him. Makoya, the boss of Chapter 11, is capable of attacking from both short and long range. Attacking with a powerful lance-wielding enemy, keep your Laguz units away. His Laguz Slayer is nasty against beasts. Beasts. Yeah. When I saw the Big Kahuna, I thought they were talking about this guy below here, the Black Knight. But obviously, that is part of number 7, an uninvited guest. Partway through Chapter 11, the Black Knight will appear, but he will not attack unless provoked. You cannot defeat the Black Knight. Stay out of his attack range and reach the northwestern corner as quickly as possible to clear the map. I reviewed an FE9 guide before, and that one was like, maybe you can have Ike fight the Black Knight to gain some XP or something, which I thought was really funny, because for one, it just risks the game over for just a little bit of XP, and for two, I'm pretty sure you don't even get XP for fighting him, so I thought that was one of the worst pieces of advice that I ever saw, and I'm glad this guy does a better job of, well, giving advice. Next page is page 58, Class War. And let's see, this is about class reviews. Now, it's actually half class review and half character review. I've always said I prefer to look at Fire Emblem units as individual characters that just happen to have a certain class, and those classes have certain properties they can use. If you do like a class review, what ends up happening is either you talk about an individual class, and if only one unit has that class, you're basically just talking about the unit, so you might as well just do a unit review. Or the opposite problem happens where you, for example, you do like a review of Cavaliers, but the game has like 4 or 5 different Cavaliers, and you can't really make a good generalized statement about them because they all have very different stats and properties, depending on the game, of course. And in this game, the reviews, they vary in quality, alright? Character reviews are not the specialty of these kind of guides, so personally, that's for me, that's where the fun starts. So let's read out the top part. Class War. Each of the game's 35 character classes has its own strengths and weaknesses. Most classes belong to the Bjork or human race, although a handful of classes are of the Laguz or demi-human race. Laguz are new to the Fire Emblem world. They will earn experience like any other character, but their class will not change. Most other classes have a beginning class and a master class. The class change is indicated by an arrow on the following pages. I'm sorry for the curve in the page. This is just the quality that I'm working with, but if you're on my channel, you're probably used to quality increasing and decreasing randomly anyway. But this is the page I got to work with. But I'll try to read it as best as I can. Most of the other pages are better, but this one is particularly folded up a little bit. So, a time for change. Once a character of a beginning class reaches level 21, he will automatically change to the appropriate master class, the character in the screenshot below. For instance, we'll change to a level 1 Falcon Knight. Oh yeah, this is about Marcia below. A rare item known as the Master Seal can prematurely change a character's class at level 10 rather than 21. Master Seals are handy for upgrading low-level characters to join you late in the game. I find this an interesting tip, because it's basically telling you to early promote people that join at a low level and you want to promote them. So basically they're saying you should promote someone like Astrid or Tormund at level 10. I don't know if I fully agree with that. As an advocate of early promotion generally, I usually promote people at around level 15 in these games, and I would sooner recommend you promote a unit like Boyd, for example, early, or Oscar or Kieran. But even then, in this game, it's usually more fun to just level them all the way to 21. I find it, I've never seen advice like that, where they're like, yeah, let's just promote Tormund at level 10. I know Mangs actually did that in his playthrough, I think. He promoted Tormund very early. As a result, he was very bad, and he ended up dying, I think. That's interesting. Guys usually just recommend leveling all the way to 20, I find. Class customization. Though you cannot decide which class your character will transform into, you can often choose a new weapon for a character to wield after the class change. An X-Knight, for instance, can expand its horizons under one of 3 additional weapon types. Once a unit learns to wield a new weapon type, he'll need to use it often on the battlefield to increase that particular unit's weapon level. I find this part a little bit misleading. It's not like wrong per se, but there's not as much customization as it kind of suggests that it's the rule that you get to customize a class, but there's really only a couple of classes that get to pick weapons. From the top of my head, when you promote a Cavalier, they get to pick an additional item like Kieran, Oscar, Astrid, and Makalov, I think that's it. And if you promote a Mage to a Sage, they get to pick between knives and staves, and I think that's pretty much it. So suggesting that they get to choose new weapons all the time, it's like, I mean, they don't say all the time, they say often, but I think it's the exception rather than the rule. That's the only thing that I find wrong with this. Other than that, though, it's a perfectly fine explanation. I just a little bit of a footnote, a little bit of nitpicking. Cannot help myself. That's kind of what I do, nitpicking stuff. Okay, so much for the general stuff, and now they're going to talk about the different classes and units in them. And on the right away, you can see the first ones are Priest Bishop, Ranger Lord, and Cleric Valkyrie. And all of these only have one representative, so basically you're just talking about a single unit. Which, I mean, it's not wrong per se, but I just find it a weird angle to take, using a class guide to review individual units. This is why I just prefer reviewing individual units. Anyway, Ike is Ranger Lord, the main character of Path of Radiance and the eventual leader of your party. Ike is the only Ranger Lord in the game. He is also the most well-rounded character, powerful enough to do some serious damage with a sword, and resilient enough to withstand most enemy attacks. Ike's class change to Lord will occur automatically in Chapter 18. You know, as for all the bashing I've done of Ike, I don't mind this kind of an introduction to a new player. This is a fine way to talk about Ike. I do find he's overrated when you're talking, like, when you're actually debating, like, which character is better than others. Like, obviously, Ike versus Kieran, that kind of thing, you know, that is a thing. But this doesn't say he's better than Kieran, it just says he's well-rounded and powerful enough to do serious damage with a sword. Like, that's fine. I've seen some bad Ikes in my life, but generally, he turns out alright. He's not weak. Riss. Or should I say Reese? I always confuse these names. I'm so used to saying Riss. I'm just going to say Riss. I apologize. Priest Bishop. Riz, a vital member to your party, will join the mercenaries in Chapter 2. He is the only Priest Bishop in the game, and he will serve as your group's primary healer. Though an important character, Riz is vulnerable to most attacks and must be protected at all times. While moving across the map, keep him behind your strong characters out of enemy range. Riz's usefulness will increase throughout the game, especially after he learns to use a physics staff, which can heal allies from a distance, and offensive light magic, which he'll learn after his class change. Assign his skills Guard, Shade, or Renewal to Riz. They will aid him well and help accept his weakness. This was going really well, but then Guard, Shade, and Renewal are very strange recommendations. So I know these change a little bit between Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, so I'm going to look up real quick what they do, just to make sure I'm not making a mistake here. Using a guide to check a guide, I know, that's very clever. Okay, I checked it just to make sure. So Shade, I'm okay with its recommendation. It's not very reliable, but it might prevent an enemy from attacking Riz that otherwise wouldn't. It's basically like a higher stealth chance thing. It's not great, but it can work, I guess. Renewal and Guard, however, oh boy. Renewal is like, you just heal 20% at the start of your turn. So I guess the idea is like, Riz is your only healer, so when he gets attacked you want him to heal himself while he's still healing others. But it's only 10% and he's gonna get like 9 out of 10 times, a couple turns after Renewal, he'll still die in one hit. So pretty bad idea. He just shouldn't be attacked to begin with in the first place. But if he is, just heal him with a vulnerary or something, or have another healer. There's another healer right below it, right here, that you can use. Renewal is a bad idea. Guard is the absolute worst idea I've ever seen, because Guard is basically cancel in FE9. When he gets a hit, he has like a skill percent chance to cancel their attack. Well, first of all, Riz doesn't attack for half the game, and then even after he promotes, he's attacking at 1 to range, so they won't counter him. And he usually won't even be attacking, because he's still better off healing than using lightning. Like, he's not super strong of a character, he shouldn't be attacking often. And he usually doesn't get countered. If he does get countered, he probably shouldn't be. Like, he should attack a different enemy, because Riz doesn't like getting countered. Most things, they don't kill him in 1 hit per se, but they usually do like enough damage to kill him in 2 hits. It's just very dangerous. Guard is a very bad idea on this guy, so this is a strange recommendation. And I think skill recommendations in general, they go pretty bad in this one. Cleric Valkyrie. Mist is another character who doesn't share a class with other units, She'll join your party as a low-level cleric with only the ability to use staves. If Mist earns enough experience to become a Valkyrie, she'll become a mounted unit with an additional ability, Swordplay. Leveling up Mist may seem tedious, but it will prove worth trouble near the end of the game when you face off against a Black Knight. I'm okay with this again. She is forced into the Black Knight fight. You don't have to win that one, but people want to win it because story reasons. And Mist is one of the ways you can make it easier, so this is fine. Swordplay isn't really like... Swordplay just means you can use a sword. It's kind of a fancy way of saying it, but whatever. It is nice that Mist can attack. I'm not surprised they didn't mention Sonic Sword, because that's really hard to get on her. Need to raise her weapon rank a lot, so... good review of Mist. Again, could have just been a character review, but whatever. Alright, next page is about Boyd, among others. Fighter Warrior. Boyd is your group's only fighter, and is with your party from Chapter 1. He is strong with an axe and has high HP, but he's weak to magic attacks, keeping him away from enemy sages and priests. Good recommendation. The hand axe in Boyd's arsenal will be useful early on, allowing him to attack his enemies from a distance. If Boyd makes the transition to a warrior, he will learn to use bows in addition to axes. As a warrior, Boyd will likely become one of your most resilient units, unstoppable on the front line. Teaching Boyd skills such as... Okay, hold on, before I get into this, the hand axe I find is more useful later on than early on, because early on it weighs him down so much that it's kind of risky and it's very inaccurate, so I don't really like it very much. And then later on is when he can really like kill everything at once range with the hand axe, so I would have twisted that around a little bit. I can see why it's useful potentially early on, but personally I would prefer to use iron or forked iron early on. But hey, it's not nitpick. Now the skills. Teaching Boyd skills such as Colossus, Resolve, or Smite will increase his usefulness tremendously. I'm not going to really disagree with these. I'll just say that like having 2 combat skills in here and then Smite is kind of weird to me. But Smite makes sense on him because he's kind of heavy, so I can see why they went for it. Berserker. Again, only one unit, Largo, your party's sole Berserker, will join your group right before Chapter 25, but only if Khalil the Sage is in your party. Having similar strengths and weaknesses to a warrior, Largo... I keep mispronouncing this. Largo should steer clear of strong magic wielders and focus on hand-to-hand combat. He's brutal with an axe, making him a powerhouse against most lance-wielding enemies. This is fine. I think he's kind of frail, like significantly more frail than Boyd because he has no supports and his defenses are kind of low. But hey, whatever. Other than that, this is a fine summary of Largo. Large boy. Archer Sniper, my favorites. In Chapter 8, seasoned sniper Shinan will leave your party, though you can lure him back in Chapter 18. And in Chapter 9, Rolf, an inexperienced archer, will join your ranks. Inexperienced. Snipers and archers are a master of the bows, and can deal damage from a distance. Neither class fares well against direct attacks, so keep him off the front line, and equip him with a longbow to attack from even further away. So far, sure, longbow's kinda shit, but fine. But then, the skills is where it goes wrong. Assigning Deadeye to a sniper makes him even deadlier. I had to look this up because when I read it, something went off in my house like, Deadeye's not that good in this game. It's good in FE10, but it's not great in this game. So I looked at what Deadeye did in this game, and I hope you're ready for this. So here's what it says. Always doubles accuracy, may send the enemy to sleep. And the activation rate for may send the enemy to sleep is skill divided by 2. So we got a mastery skill that maybe sends your enemy to sleep. It has like, let's say Shinan has like maxed out skill, let's say he's like 30 skill, which is more than he'll ever have. Let's say that would have a 15% chance to activate. 15% to put an enemy to sleep. Deadly, boys. The deadliest skill. Why do they fuck up on skills so bad? I don't get it. Maybe they played... I don't think Radiant Dawn was out back then. Like, Deadeye and Radiant Dawn is seriously powerful. It just kills you. Like, mastery skills in Radiant Dawn, they just kill you. In this game, though, putting them to sleep with like a 10% chance or something, realistically, God, that's awful. Anyway, Mage the Sage. A number of mages and sages will join your party, each specializing in a certain magic type. Mages are very weak, so they require much protection. You often need to have stronger units rescue them to keep them alive. Once they make the transition to Sage though, their offensive magic power will be so great that they can take down large warriors and berserkers with ease. When up against other magic users, mages and sages usually don't perform well. Instead, have him launch ranged attacks against enemies that are incapable of counterattacking. Good idea, you should do this with Reese too, because cancel isn't gonna work for him. But other than that, good summary. Good way to put it. And then they have a little bit about Soren, not about Ilyana or Tormod or any of the others. They just say Soren. Early on, Soren the Mage will be a burden because of the hand-holding he demands. Soren the Sage, however, is a nasty opponent. Actually a good summarizing of him, because early on he is very weak. He's got pretty low attacking power with Wind. He doesn't really double. Sometimes he'll get a lucky adept and he'll do like 6 damage instead of 3. Well, not that little, but he's pretty weak. But Soren overall becomes really good as a Sage, so I like this part. And here we go, my favorites. Axe Knight Paladin, Bow Knight Paladin, Lance Knight Paladin, Sword Knight Paladin. No matter which weapon to specialize in, Paladins are probably the best units in the game. Thank you, guide. You can do something right. They can move far, attack hard, withstand a serious beating from an opponent, and move additional spaces after attacking. Paladins are mounted units, which gives them a great movement range on most terrains. They actually have some trouble with terrain, but sure. Their only real weakness is their hindered movement on terrain such as sand. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, I said nothing. They are almost useless on the sandy plains of chapter 15, for instance. On most maps though, leading the charge with a paladin or two is a wise move. Soul and Vantage scrolls are a good match for paladins because they tend to stay ahead of the pack and therefore away from your party's healers. I'm not a big fan of Vantage in this game. I get the idea. I guess that the idea is that they activate Soul before the enemy can attack with Vantage. Other than that though, it doesn't really give him a great durability advantage. Excuse the lame attempt at a pun or something. Like Vantage in general, it's just you attack first, but if neither party dies, it doesn't really matter who attacks first. So hopefully it doesn't matter, basically. And then there's a special paragraph about Titania. Now, this is something I judge almost every guide by, the way they treat pre-promotes. If they treat them well, then they're doing good. If they're not treating them well, they're doing bad. Titania. Though the lance-wielding paladin... Like, the picture's right there. She's using an axe. Okay, let's keep on going. Though the lance-wielding paladin Titania is a monster on the battlefield, don't overuse her. Use weaker units when you can so they will earn precious experience points. This is right in the middle of like, just use them whenever you want and don't use them because they hoard the XP. It's like it's a sweet spot in the middle. I like it. I'll give it a pass. I like it quite a bit actually. It's a pretty good way to say to new players, she's a monster, you should use her, but don't use her too much. Don't overuse her. I like it. But she's not a lance. I mean, she can use lances, but like, the axe picture is right there. Do you have editors? Oh well. Beast Tribe. Hailing from Gallia, members of the Beast Tribe, consisting of cats, lions, and tigers, are vicious animals on the battlefield. Like other Laguz, beasts don't change classes. Once a beast, always a beast. Laguz beasts must build up their transform gauge in battle before they can change from human to animal form and attack. To speed up the transformation process, use a Laguz stone on the battlefield. When in their human-like state, members of the Beast Tribe are nearly useless, but in animal form they unleash a furious claw attack on an enemy, and their quickness allows them to dodge many incoming attacks. Beasts are particularly weak to fire, keeping them away from fire-wielding mages and sages. This might seem a bit strange to someone who's like familiar with Mordecai because he's not that fast, but early on he's like one of your faster units still. So I'm overall, that's the best attempt I can have at a nitpick. Overall, this is a really good summary of how Laguz work without getting all in the gritty with the numbers and everything. This is a good summary of how they work. And then they talk about Mordecai. Mordecai is one tough kitty. In animal form, he'll tear through an opponent like no one's business or nobody's business. I like it. I like it. It's good. And see, we got some Laguz tips on the next page and then some more classes. So we'll go over the Laguz first because we were doing classes, right? Bird Tribe, Heron. As the only member of the Heron tribe that will join your party, Raisin has a unique skill. He can perform a chant, enabling up to 4 units to move twice in one turn. In his human-like state, Raisin can chant for just 1 unit. In his animal form, however, he can enable up to 4 units to take additional turns, giving your party a huge advantage. Also, any unit standing adjacent to Raisin will gain health at the start of each player phase. Raisin cannot attack, nor can he defend himself. You must protect him at all costs. Late in the game, equip Raisin with a rare Night Band, which will allow him to move additional spaces and escape from harm's way after doing his duty. So for most of this, I'm actually really happy with this explanation. It's really what a guide for beginners should be. It's short, it's to the point, it says what it needs to say, it doesn't waste time talking about things that apply to one unit but also apply to a bunch of others, so it makes it look weird. Like in some of the other older guides I reviewed. It's really good. The only part I have an issue with is that it's like late in the game, equip Raisin with a rare Night Band, which allows him to move additional spaces. Kind of makes it sound like he gains more move when holding it, but it actually just gives him the ability to move again and use up his remaining movement. So they could have phrased that a little bit better, because it looks a little weird. But other than that, this is a really good explanation of the Heron tribe. I like it a lot. Bird Tribe. Hawk. 2 members of the Hawk tribe, Janaf and Olki, will join your party in Chapter 18. Like other Lagoos, Hawks cannot attack in their human-like state. They must fill their transform gauges and change to animals first. Hawks are great allies on the battlefield. They are vulnerable to arrows and wind magic, but they have the strength of other Lagoos and the movement range of Pegasus Knights. Use your Hawks to fly ahead of your party to access hard-to-reach places and take out long-range attackers. I don't think the Hawks are very good in Path of Radiance, but hey, they say they have the strength of other Lagoos, the movement range of Pegasus Knights. I guess I don't remember exactly how much move they have. I don't find them all that good in Path of Radiance, but they explained the mechanics fairly well, so bonus points for that, I guess. Hard to reach places, take out long range attackers, sure, that's what flyers can do, I guess. Dragon Tribe. The Dragon Lagoos of Goldola is a rare breed. Dragons are heavy hitters on the battlefield and can sustain a lot of enemy damage. Nazir and Enna are the only dragons that will join your party, and neither will do so until late in the game. Enna breathes fire on opponents, while Nazir breathes ice. Dragons are slow creatures. Keep them near the front line when possible, but don't be afraid to leave them behind temporarily. I like the explanation. I also like that it doesn't get into spoiler territory, because they definitely could when it comes to these dragons, but clearly, like if you played Path of Radiance, you could think of like 1,000 things to say about these two, like how to get them and stuff. But they didn't, on purpose, not to spoil people, and I like that a lot. Boy. I hope you're ready for this one, because this one, I really don't like it. Myrmidons and Swordmasters. Myrmidons are only marginally useful, but leveling them up for a class change is worth the trouble. Once they reach Swordmaster status, they become the deadliest class in the game. Okay, guide. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with you here. Swordmasters are fast and strong on the front line, and they have a strong chance of scoring a critical blow. Once they reach a high enough level, Swordmasters can dodge just about any attack. Killing Edges and Brave Swords work well in the hands of Swordmasters, as does the Astro skill. It will enable a Swordmaster to attack 5 times consecutively. Okay, Swordmasters are not that good. They are not... Like, I'm okay with them going like they're fast and they're dodgy and they have a high chance of critting, that's fine. But they're not that strong. Like, Mia and Zyhark do not have good strength. Swords are not very strong. And yeah, this is a bit of overhype. I would be okay with this kind of praise if they gave it for like every other class, but they don't deserve this. Like, they don't have that good, they're not that powerful. They're not that good, okay? And yeah, Mia, your party's first Myrmidon, will join your ranks in Chapter 7, level her up to transform her to a mighty Swordmaster. The person who wrote this really liked Swordmasters. I personally don't like Swordmasters in this game. But hey, to each their own, I guess, but no. Also, Astra in this game, it does enable you to attack like 5 times, but at the same time, it also halves your attack every time you attack with them, so they basically only do like 2.5 times the damage they would usually do, which is not nearly as impressive, but hey. They like Swordmasters. And then here on the left side of this thing, they have recruiting tactics, where they talk about how to recruit certain characters. Now, I would read this out all the way, and I guess I'm gonna, but the quality is kind of bad, so I hope you will excuse me for that. Recruiting tactics. Though some characters will join your group automatically, many will join only if you have the proper unit speak to them on the battlefield. Usually there is a window of opportunity for recruiting a unit, and if you miss your opportunity, unit will disappear. On the Choose Units menu before battle, scroll right to the conversation column. A recruitable unit's name will show up in the conversation row before the unit that must speak to the potential recruit. Cool, I didn't even know this actually. When recruiting an enemy unit rather than a neutral one, you'll usually have to sneak up on them. The unit may attack the approaching unit and die from your automatic counterattack of your unit. Not exactly what it says, but basically what it says, right? Pretty good, pretty logical. Ileana. Ileana is among your enemies in Chapter 8. As she approaches, stay out of range or she will most likely attack and most likely die. Wait for the right moment and move in with Ike to talk to her. I think it's very unlikely that Ileana suicides because she can attack from 1 to range, but I guess technically she could get stuck into a position where she's forced to take a counterattack. Even then, it's probably pretty hard to kill her in 1 round, but it's probably better to not get attacked anyway. Actually, I kind of remember playing that chapter now that I think about it, and she might not even attack you. But I'm not 100% sure on that, so if someone wants to check that, go ahead, I'm curious. But I'm fairly sure I've seen Ileana not attack me. Astrid and Gatri. Some characters can be recruited only by other recruitable units. In Chapter 13, have Ike speak with Astrid the Bone Knight. Astrid is a neutral unit who will die if she isn't recruited quickly. Once Astrid joins your party, have her talk to your former ally, Gatri. He will gladly join the mercenaries, but only at her order. Nothing wrong with that. I half wish they gave the tip of shoving Ike to recruit Astrid on turn 1, But I guess they're leaving that to the player to figure out themselves, which is also rewarding. So no point reduction for that one. And then this last part, it's a little bit cut off, but I think I know what it says about Stefan. Stefan is the trickiest character in the game to recruit, but missing out on the most powerful swordmaster will be a shame. On chapter 15, have Leth or Mordecai stand 2 squares west and 1 square down from the map's northeast corner and wait. Stefan will appear out of nowhere. If a unit other than Leth or Mordecai tries to lure Stefan out of hiding, he will flee, never to return. I think what happens is they get the fake Kadi, but not Stefan. Technically, I don't know if you can see Stefan lure, or like if you can see Stefan leave. But that is probably what happens anyway, so sure. This is something a guy should definitely tell you, is how to recruit Stefan. They should also tell you how to recruit Shinam, probably. He's kind of tricky to get to. We'll check this next page, and that's back to class reviews. Alright, Wyvern Rider, Wyvern Lord. Wyvern Riders and Wyvern Lords are flying lance wielders. Their high movement range and ability to cross any terrain makes them ideal candidates for rescuing endangered party members. Wyverns can attack with ranged weapons such as the javelin to stay at a safe distance from their opponents. They are particularly vulnerable to arrows and most types of magic. Equipping a Wyvern with a full guard will help upset the weaknesses, as will the stun and parry skills. I was going to say this is really good, but then they went ahead with the skills anyway. Now I have to double check. So stun in this game, what it does, stun, it makes the enemy unable to move for 2 turns. It has skill divided by 2 proc rates, so I don't know if I like that one. It doesn't like deal extra damage in this game, which kind of sucks. And then the parry skill in this game, it negates both the player and enemy support and terrain bonus as well as battle skills. I think it's on permanently, unlike in Radiant Dawn where you can like turn it off and on whenever you want, or rather you activate it for a single battle on your command. In this game it just happens always. I guess it's not bad on them per se, because they don't get terrain bonuses anyway. I just don't remember ever liking parity in this game. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. I do like the idea of equipping them with the full guard though. That is a good advice. I'd give it to Pegasus Knights too, but they don't. For some reason they only say it to Wyvern. But hey, whatever. Jill, your party's first Wyvern Rider, will prove to be a fairly hardy ally in the air. Yeah, sure. She's really good. Jill is really good. No complaints there. Pegasus Knight, Falcon Knights. The Pegasus Knights and Falcon Knights of Bennion are mounted units that can fly over any terrain. Pegasus Knights in particular are very susceptible to arrows and should avoid bow wielders and ballistas at all costs, or you could give them the full guard and then they don't care. But hey, guess that's not an option for him. Falcon Knights, however, are much more useful on the battlefield. Marcia the Pegasus Knight will join your party in chapter 9, and Tanith the Falcon Knight will join in chapter 18. Sure, fine, I mean, promoted versions are better. Sure, they're much more useful. Tanith. Tanith is a powerful ally. Her ability to use magic swords, the Sonic Sword, makes her effective against other flying units. She comes to your party with the Reinforced skill, which allows her to summon flying reinforcements, to whom I can issue general orders on the battlefield. These disposable units make great decoys for drawing enemy fire on any map. Good explanation. I like it. I like it a lot. The Sonic Sword, yeah, it can be pretty good against Wyverns, so sure, that's good. Thief Assassin. Here is another big blunder coming up. Soth and Folk will join your party as thieves, and they both have the potential to become assassins. No, they don't. Soth can never become an assassin, unfortunately. He doesn't promote. But I guess they just didn't try to promote him. Thieves are not great in combat, but are skilled in other ways. They can pick locked doors and treasure chests, as well as steal items from enemies. Always include a thief or assassin in your rank on levels with multiple chests and doors. This will save you the trouble of having to find keys, and helps you avoid missing out on rare items. Other than that little blunder with Soth, a pretty good summary of how to use thieves and stuff. They didn't really talk about, well, they mentioned that they were not great in combat and left it at that. I kind of like that actually. A lot of guides fall into like the pitfall of being like, well, they have good growths, but they don't. I mean, they have good growths, but knives are shit. So yeah, this is how you use thieves. Soldier Halberdier, of course, it's Nephany. Soldiers and halberdiers don't have any special skills, but their ability to withstand counterattacks, or withstand attacks coupled with their decent movement range, I mean, they have the same as most foot units, but okay, makes them useful as support fighters, whatever the hell that's supposed to be. Use them near the front line to prey on already injured enemies, while your powerhouses attack full health enemies. The Luna and Guard Scrolls will be useful on soldiers and halberdiers. Prey on already injured enemies. Feed kills the Nephany, of course, that's what it means. Feed kills the Nephany, she sucks. The Luna, there is no Luna Scroll as far as I know. Luna is a mastery skill for halberdier in general in this game. It has the enemy's physical or magical defense whenever they attack with skill percentage. It's not a bad mastery by like FE9 standards where most of them are garbage, but hey, it's there. I don't mind it. And then guard, like I said before, it's not great. It's basically cancel. It's there. It's better on FE9 than on Riz, that's for sure. Other than that, I'm not a fan of them, recommending them on them specifically, but it's alright, I guess. FE9 the soldier will join your party after you rescue her from a Dane prison in chapter 10. Fair enough. You do have to... Let me think. I think you need to escape with her on Maniac mode, but not on other modes, so whatever, that's fine. Princess Crimea. Ah yes, my favorite class, Princess Crimea. Your employer and travel companion, Princess Alincia, will join your party towards the end of the game. Though she occupies a class of her own, she is essentially a Pegasus Knight wielding a special sword. Alincia, Marcia, and Tanith can team up on the battlefield for a powerful triangle attack. Position the flying beauties on 3 sides of an enemy and attack with the third to trigger it. You could talk about, you know, the triangle attack, or you could mention the fact that Alincia is a Pegasus Knight that can use stabs. I personally think that is a very important thing to mention. Also, considering this is a guide for beginners, it might also be good to know that Alincia, when she dies, gives you a game over. Both of those things seem pretty important to me. But hey, the triangle attack is there, I guess. I mean, they even had space. Like, you could just, yeah, like they could just move Gatri down a little bit, and they would have a lot of space to talk about that too. So I think that was a missed opportunity to mention that kind of stuff. But sure, other than that, it's pretty accurate. And then last but not least, we have Lance. We have Knight General. I think that's the last class. Yeah, it looks to be. So, Knight General. Knights and Generals are the tanks of your party. They move slowly on all terrains, but can sustain great amounts of damage, making them useful for blocking passageways, while bow wielders and magic users attack enemies from behind. I fumbled that, but you know what I meant. Though they aren't the most proficient attackers, Knights and Generals can utilize ranged weapons for better counterattacking abilities. I guess they can use hand axes and javelins and stuff. I don't really see where this comes from. I guess they could just take they could take a lot of hits. That's what makes them good. I know. I can see where they were going with this. I'm not gonna dock points for this, but sure, that's all right. When you find speed wings, use them on your Knights and Generals to increase their pathetic movement range. Huh? No, no, that's not what speed wings do, and it's also not a good idea. Even like boots generals, bad. Speed wings on generals, bad. Bad advice. Next page. Fuck off. You ruined it, guide. I had hopes for you. I had high hopes for you. Alright, we have one last page with a couple of random things on them. One section that's called Be a Team Player, and another that's called Expert Opinions. So, be a team player. Eventually, your party will be so large that you won't be able to take every character into battle. You'll need to pick and choose which characters will gain experience and become your core group. Each map has its own challenges though, and you want to be prepared for whatever the game throws your way. A good party has strong attackers and defenders for the front line, skilled healers and long-range attackers for the rear, and flying units for rescuing injured allies. I dislike this notion that flying units are only good for that, but sure, whatever. Other than that, fine. Some maps require the expertise of a thief or an assassin, while others have rough terrain that makes it impossible for mounted units to move. A little teamwork will serve as the glue to bring all the classes together to earn victories on the battlefield. I think this aspect of Fire Emblem is very overrated. I've talked about this before. I think oftentimes there's like 1 or 2 dominant classes that you could just use a bunch of to trivialize the game. But for new players, I guess it's okay to diversify the team a little bit to make sure they don't run into a brick wall. But generally, it's not too good. These tips are very good though. These tips below have way exceed my expectations. Let me read them out to you because they're pretty good. Can you please hold this? Updating your character's inventories between battles is one of the hardest things to get right. You'll always wish you brought something that you left at the convoy. Fill up your most of your unit's weapon slots and keep an eye on the lifespan of the weapons. Since Lagoos cannot wield conventional weapons, they should always have 3 open weapon slots when entering a battle. Use this extra space to load them up with weapons and staff that other units might need. It's easy enough to trade on the battlefield. This is a really good tip. I did not expect to find this in like a beginner's guide, but that's pretty clever actually. I like this a lot. And they even demonstrate what they mean with like Raisin holding a Mend and a Physic for Riz, who somehow ran out of them middle of battle. Serenity on the battlefield. Raisin's unique ability to enable an ally or allies to move twice in one turn will be tempting to use solely for the purpose of attacking. More often than not, though, this ability will be of equal or greater benefit to a healer, who will be able to keep your party's frontline units in good health. Pretty good tip. If you've played for a long time, that might seem self-explanatory, but pretty good tip nonetheless. I like it. Moving units. This is my absolute favorite, and you know why. Flying units are great transportation, whether they're moving a capable unit into an attack zone or rescuing an injured unit from danger. The drawback is that both the moved unit and the carrier can lose a turn. To avoid this and save valuable time, have another unit take the rescued unit from the flyer and then drop the unit in an adjacent square, and they show how to take drop. They show rescue dropping in a written guide in a magazine in 2005. That's amazing, isn't it? You're like, hey, here's rescue strats for you. Enjoy. Like, wow, that's so good. Like I said, up and down quality, up and down, hit and miss. Second line of defense. Bow and magic users are not frontline units, but their ability to fight from a distance makes them great candidates for the second line. Let the frontline units protect them while they rain deadly arrows and magic on your foes. Pretty good general tip. They already kind of went over it in the class reviews, but nonetheless, a good reminder for newer players to do that. And then we have expert opinions. And then you think that like, oh, they're gonna have opinions that Mekkah disagree with, and he's gonna bash him. No, not gonna bash him too hard, because they clearly talk about their favorites. They don't just talk about what's good. They're not strict unit guys. They just let me just read it out to you. With so many characters and classes to choose from, no Path of Radiance party turns out the same. We asked Rich Amtower, Alan Averill, Tim O'Leary, and Thomas Connery, the localization crew that wrote the dialogue for the English version of the game, which 4 characters were their favorites by the time they reached the game's final chapter and why. So they didn't just have a couple of guide writers talk about their personal experience with the characters as if they were a guide. They just asked the localization team, the actual localization team, hey, you guys worked on this, who are your favorites? So they're not pretending like this is a good guide to go by. They're just saying, hey, these are some people that worked on this game, and we were curious what their opinions were on the characters. Who did they like? That's very different. That's why I'm not going to give him too hard of a time. Rich's favorites. I like Soren because I like magic. It's as simple as that. Plus he comes with adept straight out the box, and those 2 attacks come in real handy. Yep. I mean, he likes Soren because he likes magic. That's fair, right? And he doesn't even elaborate on the other choices, right? So he just elaborates on Soren. Maybe he did elaborate, they only picked this part to say, I like it, it's kind of cool. Alan's favorite. Kieran is a complete nut job, and I think that's why I use him. His skill with an axe is quite handy, and his support conversations with Riz are my personal favorites. You can also support Marcia, which worked well for my group. Sure, again, he just talks about his favorites. Cool. I just find this very adorable, actually. Tim's favorites. Janaf is a giant bird, what more do you need? He's fast, strong, and an all-around good egg. Shoutouts to Egg. Plus he's over 100 years old, can see for miles, and knows nothing about Bjork, which leads to much funny goodness. And yeah, Janaf. He just likes Janaf a lot, apparently. That's cool, right? And then Tom. Boyd lacks the flair of knights, but his direct and indirect axe attacks more than make up for it. Especially when I needed someone to cover Ike during the game's early stages. Sure, again, that's why he likes Boyd. Those are the expert opinions. Better expert opinions than some of the class reviews. That's the whole guide. I gotta say, this one is very charming. The quality of the advice overall, I think, is pretty good. When they stink, they really stink pretty bad. They just outright state wrong things. But overall, I really like this little feature in here. It's not a complete magazine as far as I can tell. It's just like a bit in Nintendo Power. It's really well made. It looks pretty good. I like it a lot overall. It's really fun to read. There's a certain flair to the writing that I really like. But some of the stuff could use double checking, you know. But hey, that's what I'm for. 14 years later. I hope they find this useful. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below of this guide. Let me know what guides you would like me to review. If there's any you have in mind, can be internet guides, can be anything else. Thanks again for the support and everything. Other than that, drop a like if you want to see more of this kind of content. If you don't want to see more of this kind of content, drop a like as well. And I will see you guys in another day, another episode, another time. Goodbye, peace, and see ya.